Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much to Education Scotland for having invited me along to share my leading a strategic change. Now, I moved from Spain. I was 27 years in Spain. So you can imagine it was a pretty seamless transition from Valencia and Barcelona to Aberdeen City and then to Aberdeenshire, especially for my wife, who is Spanish. Now, I am a head teacher of Pitfall School, which is a head teacher in the northeast in Aberdeenshire, about 10-12 miles from Fraserburgh, about 10-12 miles from Peterhead, and we are 107 pupils and about 23 nursery pupils. And then we have a staff with the support staff, EYPs, PSAs, teachers and everybody else, of about 30. And I had worked a lot of my career in larger schools, and small schools I really loved working in, and the fact that I know every child's name in nursery and primary and their parents is a real bonus to me. So for those people who are thinking about headship in a smaller or large school, I would really recommend medium and smaller schools. Now, early August 2021 and going into September 2021, we noticed a huge problem with mental health. We had a lot of our children, there was a huge level of absenteeism. We did have 6 non-attenders in school, and when we looked at the non-attendance, this wasn't really due, because this was 2021 and there were still obviously COVID cases. This wasn't due so much to COVID, but to a lot of problems with mental health amongst our school population. So things appeared to be going back to normal. We were not in bubbles anymore. But we had a huge amount of absenteeism from primary 5 upwards. There was a lot of social anxiety because we were back in the playground together, back in classes together. We weren't as separate, and there were a lot of problems with socialization. And mental health problems and well-being, health and well-being, were really at the cause of this. Now, as teachers and staff in the school, PSAs and all the support staff, because of COVID, we've been very used to having worked separately in our bubbles or in separate. So we were all going in the same direction, but probably all in little boats, but all going in the same direction, but not in the same boat. So it was hugely important that we worked collaboratively. To do that, we needed to carry out a form of diagnosis. And I used these different tools, which are really important for me. The good old SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then I found really useful the 7S framework, where you've got the hard S of strategy, structure, systems, and then looking at style, culture, staff, skills, and share values. But also, it was really important looking at Rummelt's kernel of strategy, where he talks about diagnosis, diagnosing what the problem is, what the required change is, looking at guided policy, those set of actions that we're going to develop and the policy we're going to develop, and then those coherent actions. And he defines that as being good strategy. So what did our journey look like? Well, there were a whole series of things that we needed to look at. We needed to look at the visions and values and aims. Were they appropriate to the school in 2021 and to the school population that we had? We needed to look at the learning, the teaching and assessment, the tracking and the assessment. We had come back from lockdowns. Things were a little bit, as was normal, all over the place. I was a new head teacher into this school, so I was a new head teacher doing into headship, trying to get to know the pupils and trying to get to know all the staff and the parents. So I often felt I was sat in a volcano and everything around me was on fire apart from my desk, which often was as well. We had to look at the analysis of health and well-being. What were we doing and what did we find that was working? And it became very apparent that in August and early September 2021, we needed to stop everything that we were doing and really look at the health and well-being of the school. I'm a great believer, and I'm sure you are as well, that health and well-being must be at the base of everything we do, and that must be the roots of what we do. And it was becoming apparent that we were facing a tsunami of mental health problems in the school and absenteeism. So one of the things we looked at was we brought in the resilience program, which I used in a previous school in Aberdeen City, which was from Edinburgh City Council, which we found excellent and worked really well. And I had a lot of experience working in learning conversations, coaching, and mentoring. And we brought in a coaching and mentoring program into the school. And first of all, we used it to target what we felt were the children that most needed it. And it very quickly became apparent that that was the whole school. And so what we did was train up our PSAs, train up our teachers, and we took out either individual children or small groups of children and did coaching, mentoring, and had learning conversations with them, which we all do in our classes, but this was very specific. We would do outdoor learning, we would be doing cooking, we'd be doing all sorts of different activities. The activity really wasn't the important thing, the conversation was. And it allowed us to get ourselves in front of a huge amount of problems and get ourselves in front of a lot of pastoral problems that we were having. Our absenteeism had been up at 35-40% of our school population had an attendance of less than 80%. 35 of those had an attendance of less than 80%. By the end of the program, and we're still running it now 3 years later, by the end of the program, by the end of the trial period that we had started in April 2022, it was down to 4% of the school population. So the raw data, apart from all the other work that we were doing, of the qualitative and quantitative data, told us that it was important. For me, if as affecting change, it's really important to think of a number of things. Mindfulness is vitally important. That's self-management, and I don't have a management team. I'm a one-man band, but I have a management team in all my teachers, my PSAs, my support staff, the administrator, the janitor. So I found it really important to be thinking about self-awareness and mindfulness. Relationship management. It's very easy when we start a change initiative to want to jump straight in. I had come from Aberdeen City, large school of over 400 pupils, to a school of 100 pupils, and it's very easy to look at things and think, oh God, I really want to change that, I've got to change that. It's so important to take that time to build relationships and to look at things and step back, because it is not, I would not say to anybody to jump straight in and go for that change initiative. Also really important, social awareness. Read the room, read the area you're in. I come from a city school in a leafy part of Aberdeen to a rural school that had 35 to 40% deprivation. So it was a very different type of school population that I had. So when I was looking at change, it was very important for me to look at mindfulness, because leading transformational change can create a lot of worry and a lot of ambiguity. And it's important that us as leaders are really developing that awareness, paying attention to the present, and being able to support and nurture all our stakeholders, from the pupils to the staff to the parents. I really liked this when I was doing my leading strategic change. This is Kohler's 8 Steps of Change, because that creating a climate for strategic change for me is a little bit like the health and well-being that we have at the centre of our curriculum in the Curriculum for Excellence. If we don't get creating urgency correct, if we don't get building a coalition correct, or creating a vision, we might as well not bother. It's really important. And that next step, engaging and enabling those in the organisation, it's vitally important in all areas that we give leadership to all our staff, not just leadership in the classroom or leadership of learning, but leadership in different areas, because we need to be preparing that leadership pipeline for tomorrow, but especially for our pupils, not just pupil voice, but pupil participation, and getting our pupils from primary 1 to primary 7 to be leaders in their way. And it's important to communicate the vision, empowering others. And before, Gillian's talked a lot about empowering others and delegating. That is vital. And one of the worst things we can do, and we've all experienced in different ways, is to micromanage things, because that is the best way to disempower people. Creating quick wins. It's really important in a change initiative, and I found it was really important to get those quick wins so people could see that there was forward motion. There won't always be, but it's important to get those in. All of these stages are vital, but especially the last one, building on the change and embedding the change, implementing and sustaining it. We've all worked in schools, And institutions where the one thing is, something's come in one year and the next year it's gone. We're going, oh, where's that gone? Where is it? So it's really important that we implement the change and sustain the change. And we're continuing to drive this strategic change forward in my school in a slightly different way. It's metamorphosized into something different, but it's really important to sustain and carry that on. These were two graphics I really liked that I was reading about the other day. One is from Jerome, I'm not going to try and pronounce his Dutch name, Kragenbrink. This talks about high trust teams. It's really important that everybody feels valued, that there are clear goals, there's accountability, but it just takes one person not to be on board that change train for that to be derailed. So it's really important that there is that consistency and we call out in a correct and inclusive way bad behavior, and we invest in relationship building. When I took up my first headship in Spain, my mentor said to me, it doesn't matter how much stuff you've got on your desk and paperwork, Andrew, you need to be out and about, you need to be seen by the children, you need to be seen by the parents, you need to be seen by the staff. The paperwork and other stuff can wait. And that is so right. This is something that I really liked about categories of change, and it talks about 4 areas which I think are really, really important. That quick wins, getting those quick wins in, getting those critical steps. There are really important critical steps in our leadership of change, and it's vital that we get those in correctly. That might be at the start, the middle, or the end. Those energy boosters, it might be doing something to do with the health and well-being of the staff. It might be part of the initiative, but it's important to get that in too. And the major leaps, because there are certain times in our leading a strategic change when there will be big jumps forward, and other times when it will go at a slower pace. And we might be champing at the bit for it to go faster, but we have to make sure we're going at the pace of the person that is the least quickest. Benefits of co-leadership. For me, it's vital to have co-leadership. I was reading the other day that people were saying, oh, co-leadership is diluting leadership and it's giving up and it's abdicating responsibility. I disagree with that completely. It's not at all. My leadership team is the whole school and the pupils and the parent council and the parents. And it's vital for me. If I don't work with all of those stakeholders, I would last about a few hours, a couple of days in the job. So it's vital. And I can't be, as Gillian was talking about before, we can't all be fountains of immense knowledge, but I do know people that have more knowledge in certain areas. So it is really important, the benefits of co-leadership and leading together with other people. This again is a graphic I really like. It's got front, back and sides, and so short back and side, front, back of sides. And it talks about leading from the front, that visionary leader, which is quite often needed, perhaps at the start of a change. Also leading from the back, which some people sometimes call servant leadership. And leading from the side. Now, those have positive and negative points, but to my mind, a complete leader, which I know the people in this room are, to be a complete leader, we need to be doing those different things. And a truly complete leader is somebody who is doing using these different strategies in a flexible and agile fashion, because it may be that one situation requires one form of leadership and another a different one. So the good old change code, which I'm sure you will have seen before, based on the work by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, I think I've got it right. This reminds me a little bit of the learning pit of change, and whereabouts are you on this? Whereabouts do you feel your staff, your team are on this? I think these are 5 or 6 things I would really want to reinforce. It's really important to watch, wait, and listen. We'll be champing at the bit to get off, especially if you're taking up a new headship post or going in as a new head teacher. It's vital to build those relationships. Because unless we know the climate that we're walking into and the atmosphere and the way things are running in the school, we can't begin to make any change, because we can't do any form of diagnosis, because we don't really know what we're talking about. Get buy-in. Get buy-in from your stakeholders, from the pupils, parents, and all the staff. You need to get them on board. Otherwise, your change initiative will slowly and surely peter out. And that can be difficult, because there will be members of staff, there will be parents that really don't want to come along on this and remember that, I really liked it the way it used to be. Quick wins are important so we can see the success of that leadership of change, and regular communication with all the stakeholders involved in that change so that they know what's happening, not periods of absolute silence. And we've all been involved in change initiatives where it started off with a whiz and a bang, and we've been in rooms like this, and then a couple of months in we're thinking, I wonder what's happened. And the next time we hear about something might be an in-service day 6 months later. Feedback is really important, and getting honest feedback to yourself and those professional conversations, not just with your staff, but with all the stakeholders involved in the change. And that's really important, and we're guided by that very often, and should be guided by Higius 4 and the pointers there. Inclusion, really important, create that sense of belonging for the change, that sense of belonging in your school. And last but not least, because we will often be spinning plates, and as Gillian was talking about with her job, and we know with our jobs, you could work 24 hours a day and still not finish the things that are on your desk. Look after yourself. Thank you very much.